Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Summer and Kyle's drunken night of passion surrender to hotel heat. The Young and the Restless, Y&R. Spoilers reveal that Adam Newman, Mark Grossman, and Chelsea Lawson, Melissa Claire Egan, know how easy it is to get swept up in old feelings, especially when alcohol and family drama are involved. Chelsea and Adam are still dealing with the consequences of their hookup in Baltimore, but another pair of exes could be next when it comes to surrendering to hotel heat. Summer Newman, Allison Lanier, and Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, find themselves in a similar situation this fall. We know Kyle feels a spark with Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, and will pursue a romance with her soon, but that doesn't mean he's completely over Summer. Likewise, Summer is on the verge of looking deep in her heart and trying to nail down what she still feels for Kyle. There are signs that Kyle and Summer may not be done with each other romantically, which isn't surprising considering how many times these two have reunited over the years. Since Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, will land in some danger due to Sharon Newman's Sharon Case storyline, Summer may end up worried sick. Booze may help Summer cope if Phyllis gets injured and falls into a coma again. Meanwhile, Kyle's own family problems could drive him to drink as well. Claire will try to help Kyle fix things with Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, and Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters, but her plan might backfire and cause even more conflict. That could lead to Kyle storming out of the Abbott mansion and crossing paths with Summer at the GCAC. Perhaps Summer and Kyle could become drinking buddies who lean on each other before ultimately surrendering to temptation. The story of former flames having too much to drink during a crisis and hitting the sheets is a soap staple. Will Kyle and Summer be the next Y&R characters to let history, family drama, and drunkenness drive their actions? The Young and the Restless spoilers say Summer and Kyle are always going to be intertwined, so we'll bring you predictions on their future and updates on any passionate news that might be in the works. The dim glow of Genoa City's skyline flickered against the window of the opulent hotel suite, casting long shadows over the room. Summer Newman sat on the edge of the plush king-sized bed, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the rim of her glass. She could hear the steady hum of traffic below, but up here in this secluded haven, it felt like the outside world had melted away. Across the room, Kyle Abbott stood by the minibar, his broad shoulders tense as he poured another drink. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, unresolved tension, and a longing neither of them could fully deny. They had been through so much, too much, really, and yet here they were again, drawn to each other like moths to a flame, despite the burns they'd suffered in the past. "Do you really think this is a good idea?" Summer asked softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. She wasn't sure if she was asking him or herself. They had ended up here by accident, or was it fate? A random business dinner turned into drinks, drinks turned into laughter, and laughter led to memories they'd tried so hard to bury. Kyle glanced at her over his shoulder, his jaw clenched, and for a moment, it seemed like he was about to turn back, to walk out the door before anything could happen. But then he sighed, taking a long sip from his whiskey. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice hoarse with the weight of everything they'd been through. "I don't know what we're doing here, Summer. But it feels like we never really ended, does it?" Summer's heart twisted in her chest. Of course, it never felt like it had ended. Even after everything with Tara, with Harrison, with Audra, it always came back to this, to them. It was like the universe kept pushing them toward each other, no matter how hard they tried to move on. "We're both different people now," she murmured, more to herself than to Kyle. She tried to convince herself of that truth, that they were too damaged, too changed, to go back to what they had once been. But as she looked at him, standing there with that same familiar intensity in his eyes, she wasn't sure she believed it. Kyle crossed the room in a few quick strides, sitting down beside her. His knee brushed against hers, sending a shiver up her spine. "Are we, though?" he asked quietly, his voice dangerously low. "Or are we just pretending to be different because it's easier than facing what's still between us?" Summer's breath caught in her throat as Kyle's hand came to rest on hers, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. The touch was electric, igniting every nerve in her body, and for a moment, she wanted nothing more than to surrender to it, to forget everything that had happened, to forget everyone else, and just lose herself in him. "Don't," she whispered, but there was no strength behind the word. She didn't want him to stop. She wanted him to keep going, to pull her into the heat of the moment, and make her forget all the reasons why this was a bad idea. Kyle leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Tell me to stop, Summer," he said softly, his lips brushing the sensitive skin of her neck. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk out that door right now." But she couldn't. The words wouldn't come. Instead, she turned her head ever so slightly, her lips dangerously close to his, and in that moment everything else faded away. There were no more doubts, no more hesitations, just the two of them, tangled in a web of passion and history too deep to untangle. And then, like a dam breaking, they gave in. Kyle's lips crashed against hers with a desperate urgency, his hands threading through her hair as he pulled her closer. Summer responded with equal fervor, her arms wrapping around his neck as she pressed herself against him. The kiss was wild and heated, a culmination of all the tension that had been simmering between them for months, maybe even years. They stumbled back onto the bed, their bodies entwined as the world outside ceased to exist. It didn't matter what happened tomorrow or what mistakes they might be making tonight. All that mattered was this moment, this raw, unbridled connection that neither of them could deny any longer. Kyle's hands roamed over her body, and Summer arched beneath him, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps as the intensity of their desire consumed them both. It was as if they were trying to make up for all the time they'd lost, all the moments they'd missed, with each frantic touch, each fevered kiss. But as their passion reached its peak, a small, nagging voice in the back of Summer's mind reminded her that this couldn't last. They were running on borrowed time, and eventually reality would come crashing back in. There were still so many complications: Harrison, their families, their messy, tangled history. Could one night of passion really change anything? As they lay tangled in the sheets, their bodies spent and their breathing heavy, Summer turned her head to look at Kyle. His eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling steadily as he caught his breath, and for a moment, she let herself imagine that they could stay like this, that the world outside the hotel room didn't exist. But they both knew that wasn't true. "What happens now?" Summer asked softly, breaking the silence. She wasn't sure if she was ready for the answer, but she knew they couldn't ignore it. Kyle opened his eyes, his expression unreadable as he looked at her. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice quiet but resolute. "But we can't pretend this didn't happen." Summer nodded, her heart sinking a little. She didn't want to pretend it hadn't happened, but she also knew that facing the consequences of this night wouldn't be easy. "Whatever comes next," Kyle continued, his hand reaching out to gently brush a strand of hair from her face, "we'll figure it out together." And for now, that was enough.